Hello, everybody. This is Kevin Jones, and I'm coming to you from my office at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in the museum, and welcoming you to this week's episode of Collection Conversations. And I'm really excited to be with a dear friend of mine today, Mela Hoyt-Heydon. But I want to say good morning to everybody here on the West Coast, and good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast, and good evening wherever else you are in the world. So I'm just watching now for Mela to see when she joins, and I will invite her to come live. So where are you? Let's see. Hello to Lee. I see you're with us today. Hi, Tim from Chicago. Let's see. Gosh, lots of people. I can't find Mela. She's amongst the crowd. Mela, I need you to stand up. We have been practicing on my FIDM Museum Instagram to make sure that everything worked okay. And we've had quite a lot. There she is. Okay, go live with Mela. So excited. She'll be joining momentarily. Here she is. Hi, Mela. I'm going to move this down a bit for me. There we go.
Hello.
Hi, I can hear you. This is so exciting.
I know. People have no idea all the practice that's gone on.
Yes, we had quite a lot of technical buffoonery going on earlier this week, and thank you to your daughter Victoria and also to your fabulous husband Bruce for helping us out to actually so we could hear each other. Otherwise I was going to have my office phone on and we were going to be talking live on Instagram through a landline. So I just wanted to say thank you, Mela, so much for joining me today for the collection conversation. I was just telling our everybody who's joining that you and I have known each other for what, 2 weeks? Is that about it?
Absolutely. Maybe not that
long. More like 20 plus years. And
way more than that. Way more than
you
that.
are truly, truly one of the most busy people I have ever known in my entire life. And you put me to shame. And I feel like I need to be doing a whole lot more because I'm wasting my life compared to the amount of work you've been able to do in a very short amount of time.
Crazy.
So I'm going to read a bio first, and then we are going to just have a nice conversation. And anybody joined us today, if you have questions, nobody sent in questions in advance, which is fine. But if you have questions as we're going along, please ask because I am watching the feed, okay? So, Mela Hoyt-Heydon is a member of the United Scenic Artists Local 829, costume designers, and owns the business Atelier Mela, which designs and produces period millinery for the entertainment industry. These can be seen in such period films as Vanity Fair, Titanic, Emma, Jefferson in Paris, one of my favorite films, Persuasion, North and South, and The Aviator. Mela's professional costume design work includes the musicals Jane Eyre, Beauty and the Beast, Miss Saigon, My Fair Lady, Cats, The Secret Garden, just to name the more than 400 productions you have done. I have been doing nothing with my life.
It takes
She has designed for a variety of television commercials as well, and I just love this. For Mattel, Worlds of Wonder, Pacific Southwest Bell, Quick and Crispy French fries, and McDonald's, including Dancing Chicken McNugget. We're going to talk about that one offline. Mela retired in June 2016 as chairwoman of the Theater Arts Department at Fullerton College, where she had been teaching and a resident costume designer for 35 years. I will always associate you with Fullerton because that was your home away from home for so many years. Has been a member of the boards of the Costume Society of America, the United States Institute of Theater Technology, president of the Costumers Guild West, which we're going to talk about a little later, dean of the Costume College, which is associated with the CGW, and a member of the Smithsonian's History Research Team. How fascinating. She received a BA in Theater Arts from the University of Redlands, her MA for Art History at King's College, England, and an MFA from the University of California at Irvine. Mela currently resides in Salem, Oregon. We used to be able to actually see each other in person a lot more often now, but we don't. Where she is remotely working on several projects for Disney, Walt Disney Imagineering. So, Mela, what have you been doing lately?
You know, just sitting around at the beach here because there is no beach. No, well, there is, but not really. So I've opened, like I said, the store, and it's a little tiny store compared to the one we had in California. It's 1/4 the size, and Oregonians are not too sure about hats yet, but that's okay. And
You're working on it.
Yeah, I'm working on it, and I'm just doing freelance stuff for WDI, which, you know, you really can't talk about at this point. I can talk about what I've done before, but not what I'm doing right now.
Okay, top secret. I love it.
No, it's all those NDAs.
You're like 007.5.
Well, you know, they don't. It's just like working on a film. You don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You don't until it's released, until the public sees it, and that's only fair.
Sure, absolutely. So, just to start, you know, were you always interested in dress history, theater, costume as a child?
Well, I actually had a troll doll pattern line in 4th and 5th and 6th grade where I made patterns for troll dolls for everybody, and most people didn't sew, so then I ended up making troll doll clothes. So I guess, yes. I started.
Did you take the troll doll hair and like turn it into Marie Antoinette?
No, I didn't do anything with the hair. I just made little felt clothes for them and started with that. Both my grandmothers were dressmakers, and they taught me how to sew. My mother was a perfectionist. My grandmothers used to roll their eyes and say, no, you take a piece of soap, you look at the picture, you draw on the fabric, you cut it out, you make it. What's the problem?
Soap. Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah,
well,
you'd mark it with the soap.
Little slivers of soap they used to use to draw the patterns out on fabric. My grandmothers did. Yeah. So
did you graduate in like high school to working in the theater department?
No, I really didn't. I did a little bit of working in costumes in high school, but I was on student council. I was on drill team. I worked. I didn't do that, and I went to college actually to be an actress and fell flat on my face. And so then went into the costume department and did that, and then I was going to be a big costume designer, and we moved to Berkeley, California for my husband's grad school, and I couldn't get a job for love nor money as a costumer, so what did I find work as? An actress. And I used to put in my bio that I was a costume designer, that when I couldn't find work, I would act.
Oh, right. Okay. And that you could make your own costumes. Yeah, it's like very turn of the 20th century.
No, it was a little bit more professional than that. So, but then I got a gig. It's a long. This is interesting. I got a call from somebody I knew from when I was working as a waitress at Disney during college, that remembered my last name was unusual, that I'd moved to the Bay Area, that I was a costume designer, and they were on the road show of GC Superstar with Ted Neely and Carl Anderson, and their costume designer had passed away, and they needed the clothes refurbished, and was I available? And that's what started. That's what really started my costuming career, was that road show. And then that
one phone call, right?
One phone call, yeah, from someone remembering my name, looking me up, and because we were up in the Bay Area, and they were up in the Bay Area. It was Concord Pavilion, kind of like the Universal Amphitheater. And I did that, and from there I started to work, and then I went back to school and went to UC Irvine to get an MFA. But this probably
wasn't a cell phone either, right? Cell call?
No, it was a landline. It was a landline. And how did I put myself through school at UC Irvine? By performing at the dinner theaters.
Marvelous. Okay, so you are an actress as well. That should have been on the bio.
Yeah, no, really low, really on the bottom.
Well, I have a lot of photos today to show our viewers that kind of skim through your career, but also the highlights of the things that you have done in the past, but also you're still very involved in today. I don't think of you as in any way retired, because you have your fingers in so many different projects going on. And what I appreciate is they're all dress related, dress history related. And I just love your enthusiasm, and you've always been such a wonderful person for me to be able to come to talk about dress and history and bounce ideas off. But you're so hands-on. That's the thing that's really great. You have worked in academia for years and years and years, but you're also very the practical person. I mean, and one thing that you and I share is that interest in historical recreation at a fun level, but also at a very precise academic level, to then test out how it was wearing historic dress. It's great to look at paintings. It's great to look at surviving garments, which we're going to do today, but also to wear those garments and what did the individuals feel, move, how did they function?
Jean Honeysett once called me an overeducated cutter, and I took that as a compliment. Because when I first met her, she thought, oh, she's a designer. I don't, and because she was a maker. But she said, oh, Mela, you're just an overeducated cutter. And I think that's kind of who I am.
Well, here is our first image today. So here is Mela, portrait of Mela, portrait of a lady, right? And in one of your ensembles that you have recreated, and I'm sorry if this is blurry.
Oh, it's a blurry picture, I think, that I gave you. So, yeah.
So tell me about the level of work that you do both for fun and also then in the academic way.
So I like to recreate historical garments and wear them because I think that if you understand how they move, well, first of all, how they're made, how they move, how you sit, how you walk in them, I think it's really important, and it leads you to understand more about the time period. And it also helps me when I was teaching how to how to create these things, how they were done then and why they were made the way they were and what makes them the understructure and how does it hold like that and can you sit in a chair? And we have to remember they didn't have bucket seats then, so sitting in a car is a lot different today than it is even sitting 25 years ago when it was a bench seat. So those are the type of things that I find fascinating, and I think you learn more about a garment from the inside out than just viewing a painting.
And you also create all of the understructures that go along with the garments too, correct?
You have to because that's what holds, the garment together. That's what creates that silhouette. What we forget is women didn't create all those before. There were corset makers. They would buy this. I mean, it was, they would go shopping for some things and other things they would create. But we have to, up until recently, we've had to create it all ourselves. Now there's companies that you can get historical things that actually do research and do recreate them correctly. Well, 25, 30 years ago, there was very, very slender, available, very few things available. So,
well, and honestly, I think you've been one of the pioneers in the field that has helped other individuals be able to develop these companies, these businesses that now specialize in corsetry, period shoes, footwear. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I'm working on a project right now, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and I'm doing a lot of searches online and so forth. And sometimes I'm looking at objects and I'm like, is this an actual period garment that is, or piece that has survived, or is this a recreation? They're so well done. I would never have thought that some of the historic garments I have seen in museums could ever actually be recreated today, and I'm completely wrong.
It just depends. A lot of it comes down to fabric today. That's what it is. You know what? The technology is out there for the patterning, for the cut. The expertise is out there, even how to stitch. Everything is there. Sometimes it's simply getting the correct fabric, and that's the hardest part, is getting the correct fabric or the correct fabric in the right scale.
Here is a really gorgeous, is this Worth or Douce? I can't quite remember.
You're going to ask me that, and I have no idea. I think it's Douce. I don't think it's Worth.
Yeah, I think this is a Douce as well. If I do say so myself. So here is a really magnificent gown. It is like a metallic silk gauze.
It's actually a silk organza. I looked it up. It's
okay.
A silk organza over a lame, an actual lame. not today's modern lame, but the metallic lame.
Real metal.
Real metal. Mm-hmm.
So here is a gown that obviously you fell in love with, you liked, you thought was really beautiful. Mm-hmm. And, no kidding, Mela did not steal it from the museum. She actually created her own.
Yeah, and it's actually over vintage or antique lame. Somebody gave me a piece of yardage of it, and it was horrible to work with. But that's under this. It's silk organza on top of the lame, and you can really see it shine through in this particular photo because it's backlit by fire, and then with a modern photography, it really shows through the lame underneath it. When you see it in person, it is not that glowing at all. It's much more subtle.
I'm amazed that it literally looks exactly like the garment that's in the museum's collection. It's really extraordinary how well you were able to match this. Where did you source the fabric?
The silk organza on the top, I actually got in Goldworks on that road in Britain, and it's just a silk organza that had that iridescent look to it. And then, like I said, somebody gave me a bolt of this lame, saying, we've had this for years. I don't know what it is, but you want it? And it was real metallic lame, a lot of yardage of it. And so that's where
So you probably would not have gotten the same effect with like a double knit polyester from the 70s?
Nah. Or even a shiny, costumey lame would not have worked underneath that thing.
Right. So, how is it that you then choose a certain garment? Are these is it sometimes commissioned from for you to do it? Is it?
I don't do commissions for anybody.
Okay.
No, this is just my love. Somebody asked how do I store the gold lame dress. I actually have it in. I have hanging loops on everything. The skirt is separate from the bodice. They all have hanging loops on it, and they are in cloth bags.
And how long did this?
When I
how
wear
long
it,
did this?
I use
Yeah.
vodka.
Yeah.
I do it.
Really?
Vodka.
How long did it take you to do this?
Oh, you don't want to know. This is something that people don't understand. I'm really fast because I spend months stewing about it, planning everything out step by step by step so that I know what I'm going to do when I get there. And then when I go do it, I can just do it. And I actually made it in a week and a half.
Wow. And was this for a particular ball?
Yeah, we belong to the Curious Collectors of Baker Street. It's a Sherlock Holmes group, and they used to hold a gas fitters ball, and this was made for the gas fitters ball.
Well, I have to say, Mela has even dressed me. She literally looked me up and down. I was like, okay, and then got a costume for me for a Jane Austen ball, which was fantastic. That was so much fun. Only time I've ever been. And I'd love to go again sometime. You're going to have to dress me. And you belong to a lot of the associations that have to do with historic dances.
Yeah, and I'm not really a dancer. I mean, I dance, don't get me wrong, but I don't go for the dancing. I just go because then I can make clothes. I'm there for the clothes.
Okay.
Let's be real.
Great. Here is another of Mela, a turn of the century. I'm not certain who this guy is. Did you just pick him up off the street or something?
Today.
This, of course, is Mela's lovely husband, Bruce, who is such the gentleman and even dresses the part. And how lovely to have a partner that, enjoys to do this as much as you. And you guys make such a great couple.
Yeah, so that was a copy of a plate out of a Victorian picture, just a plate. So, I mean, I've never seen the actual gown. It was just one of those sketches, and I fell in love with it, and so made it up from that and just found some really great fabrics.
Do you always copy a historic garment, or do you ever do I like this bodice, I like that skirt, and kind of a hybrid and design?
I always used to just create my own. And then in the last 15 years, it's become a thing where people have been recreating specific dresses. Mm-hmm. And So no one even wants to talk to you about your thing if you created your own lately. So it's a whole new thing. I think the cosplay world has had a lot of things to do with that, where you're recreating a cosplay. So they don't recognize it as worthy unless you recreate something that's recognizable.
Interesting.
Which is really within the last about 15 years that's happened. It's very fascinating. So
well,
now I recreate something that somebody else has done before, but we used to always just design our own.
Right. I find that fascinating. I wonder if it has to do with not only competition, but the fact that museums are trying to get more and more of their objects out online. It's easier to do searches. We try to have multiple images. You can blow up those images, see details.
Absolutely. The museums, because of that, it's been fabulous for everyone in the historical world. Before, you were looking at black and white sketches, black and white pictures, and you never saw the backside, you never saw the side, you never could blow it up, you couldn't get the detail, you just saw these little tiny things. And now, because of what the museums have put online for everybody, we can see things all the way around. Sometimes they show the inside. It's fabulous. We have to really thank the museums for all that they've put online, all the digitizing. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, because in the past, you had to make a research appointment for the museum to pull the object, so then you could really look at it, take your own photos, and now there's so much online. It's incredible. And I wonder if that's also what's helped to kind of up the show-off ability, the competition between the creators. I'm just astounded by the level of workmanship and detail that goes into, and it's not just beautiful fabrics. We're talking embroideries and so forth. The first Empire balls, where these individuals go to Fontainebleau in France, and they're wearing full embroidered gowns. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. Things I never would have thought have been recreated.
And I think that people are going back to handwork too, and understanding that what made some of these gowns was the attention to the detail done by hand. And the last dress you showed, and the green one too, the stuff around the sleeves, that was all handmade flowers. And the other one, all the flowers were handmade also, because to get that, before people would get something from plasticky, from Michaels, which they call them silks, but they're not silk, and use that because there was nothing else available and no information on how to make it. And now with the YouTube and everything, people can go online and they can learn how to do things. And so they're being educated without having to go get a degree.
Absolutely, and they become complete experts.
Yeah, because they can focus on one area or on something.
I think it's interesting you mentioned the flowers and that your flowers were all handmade, because early on here at the FIDM Museum, when we would be dressing garments, historic garments, and we want to finish off the look, we would have some flowers in the hair or make a little bouquet for the mannequin to hold. We never add something to an actual historical garment, but we were using kind of the more Michaels silks, and we got called out on it by a friend of mine who is a dealer, and he's like, you cannot have that kind of crap flowers anymore. I'm going to find you handmade silks that would have been used in the day for a bouquet or to make a headdress or something like that. And he was absolutely correct. It transformed there's something about the fabrics, the colors, the weight, the patina that's come onto these that you just don't find in
it's what makes it.
Yeah, absolutely. So your theater and movie career have been extraordinary as well. I only have one photo to show, but it is an extravaganza. La Cage aux Folles, of course.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun doing La Cage. Now that was a great show to get to do. Yeah, it was during a crazy time of my life where I was opening a show every 2 weeks, and it was during this. It was during the opening night of this show that I learned I was pregnant with my son, and so I remember that very strongly.
Well, it must play into how fast you are in your own private creations for your own, wearing, that you're able to do something rather quickly, because if you were opening a show every 2 weeks, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, so you have to realize it takes a village. It's never one person. The designer gets all the credit, which is fabulous, and I love it. But you know what? You are only as good as your team. And I had a fabulous team for years. And it changed and morphed, but I had a fabulous team. And when I was doing that many designs, I had several teams. And like one team did the dinner theater things for me. One did the civic light operas. One team worked at the college. And so you're only as good as your team. And your team is what makes you. And I believe strongly in my team.
That's the same that I feel in the museum field as well. It's like, the curator may have their name on a book or on an exhibition, but it's so many people behind the scenes that build the gallery sets, and, the researchers and the interns that we have to come in that do so much work. And there's no way anybody could ever do a project like we do just singularly. It's impossible.
No, it's a village. It always takes a village. It really, and if you don't think it takes a village, then get out of the business, because it takes a village, and you need to take care of your team. Your team are important.
Which do you prefer? Do you like the movie industry? Do you like the theater world? Which do you prefer?
Well, what I preferred before and what I prefer now are different. I loved doing theater. I love live theater. I love the scale of theater. I love the excitement of theater. I love that you show a story in an hour and a half or 2 hours. I love seeing something from a distance. I just love the scale of theater. I really do. Today, I am loving creating again. I'm not doing as much designing. I'm actually doing more creating with the freelance work I'm doing. And so I'm creating things, basically things that will be in rides and queue lines. And I'm loving every minute of it, of getting to create. Because when you're designing, you're shopping, you're overseeing, you're meeting with directors, you're doing meetings, you're fittings, but you're not doing the hands-on like I love doing. Like I'm an overeducated cutter and maker.
Mm-hmm.
I really am.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your creativity, and particularly with Atelier Mela. You are very well known. You are a go-to person for millinery, historic period millinery. Yes, you can do everything else, but for some reason, you've really created a niche for yourself as a go-to, and your work is absolutely stunning.
That's from Tokyo. That was a setup in the old shop in the back workroom, and that was just a dog and pony show, like we say, for Valley Mastroni, who was the art director on a project we did for Tokyo Disney. They opened a new Fantasyland last March, a year ago, and it's all Beauty and the Beast, and it's all 18th century. And we did probably 60 hats for them. So here's a whole bunch of bergères that we did for them. Some of them we designed, some they gave us a picture of an actual hat of a time period, like in a portrait, but a lot of them, the shop design. And once again, that was my team too. So this was not just Miss Mela, that was my team. I had a great team on that.
Do you have a particularly favorite period of millinery to work on?
I love bustle. I love bustle hats, small little bustle hats, and those were always the Mela Does hats. The team didn't really work on the bustle hats. They were always Mela sitting in a chair somewhere, hand making a hat. So that's my favorite, are bustles. They really are. But I did love, you've got a picture of that big poof one. And
I do.
This one, I do. This one was really fun to make. Now, this one was a me. This one was a me. They wanted one large, very poof hat, and they gave me a picture from the 18th century that was a fashion plate. But they wanted it, and it was pretty strong colors in the fashion plate, you guys. But they wanted a little bit more Disney-ized, because I always have to think about color with Disney is a little stronger than reality. And this one was a really fun hat to make. It really was. And it's got a really big central place in the display in the hat shop in Fantasyland in Tokyo. So it's up on a stand just like that.
Now, do you do all of these from scratch? Like you actually create the blocks and the shapes and so forth?
Yes, they're all done from scratch. Yeah, they are. So even the straw ones you saw, they're all stitched straw. So they're all done from scratch. Right.
Do you ever find period blanks and use those, particularly maybe from the 1880s, 90s?
No, I've never, because a lot of them are fragile, and if I do collect what I call dead hats. So if you have an old antique hat that's just torn apart and it's just fragile, that's the hats I want, because then I don't feel bad about taking them apart to seeing how they're made and seeing what's inside the structure. So I have a lot of dead hats. The good hats I give to Kevin, that I give, and I'll study them for a while, and I'll give them to Kevin for the museum. But the dead hats I keep. I keep the dead hats because I want to see how they're made. I want to see how they're done.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I was going to ask if how is it that you've learned all of this? It's obviously not just looking at a fashion plate, because, that'll give you some information, shape, maybe decoration, but that doesn't tell you anything about maybe what's going on behind or how it's constructed inside.
Well, I started in grad school. I actually interned for a gentleman called Lloyd Lambert, and he has passed away. He had a shop in Los Angeles, but he did Vegas type stuff. So I started learning Vegas type things, and I worked on the headdresses for the Tropicana and things like that underneath him. And then I started trying to research everything I can get my hands on, and it was hard to come by. I made some trips to England and found some old millinery books there, devoured them, and kept trying to go with my costumes I was making for me. And then I took classes from Rose Corey in Britain, who was milliner to the Queen Mum. So I worked on her, and a really good friend of mine is Jane Smith, and she's come out and taught for me at Fullerton College. She's a theatrical milliner, and of course I've worked alongside with her. And you know what? You've learned by doing and just getting better, and then realizing the last three you made weren't as good as the one you're making now, and then the next one you make, you learn, oh, I should have done it this way, and always being willing to learn. I just love to do that.
Well, and I have to say, Mela, you left out one category of research, going to museums and seeing the actual objects. Because every time Mela's in town, I tell you, she makes an appointment with the FIDM Museum, and she's like, can I look at, I'm doing, and I'm like, yes, please. And we end up having a hat day.
Yeah. Oh, I have so many photos, and I use them constantly. But I can't tear apart Kevin's hats.
No, that's true.
He doesn't let me take the birds off to see what's underneath.
Well, it's great. And every time we acquire a hat, I tell you, I'm like, oh, Mela, we just got. You've got to come and see this. And
6 more.
Right. And we did just acquire the most extraordinary.
You teased me about this.
1808 wedding bonnet.
I know.
We know who wore it. And so the next time you're down, it should be here. It's on its way. And you're going to have to sit down before you see it, because you'll fall down once you actually look at it. It's got every bell and whistle you can imagine on it. And it's in pristine condition. It's incredible.
Excitement.
Yeah, because Mela and I both love First Empire Regency millinery. Absolutely just love it.
I love that. I love to make bustle, but I love Regency. That sounds weird, but I love to make bustle, but I love Regency. That's my second, but I love the hats more in the Regency, but I love to make the 1880s.
Yeah, there's a comment from Historical Beauty, with so many people in history wearing hats, you wonder why that many didn't survive. Probably because they were picked apart and adapted. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It's surprising how many have survived, but they get squished and scrunched, and put them in a box, and they get moldy. I've had lots of moldy hats. But no, they pick them apart and redo them, and you take the straw off and you turn it into something else. Absolutely.
Well, what's one of the things that's interesting to me that I didn't realize early on in my career, looking at hats, I'm like, oh, this is just pinned on. Somebody must have just, instead of it being sewn on, pinned on millinery was.
All the time decorations were pinned on. People don't realize that they're just lightly pinned on a lot of the decorations, so you can take it off and retrim it.
Right. So here is another bonnet that is from a film. So this one.
Look at her hair. Isn't that horrible?
I know.
God,
Let's not
Can't
look at the
even,
hair. Let's just
God,
look at the bonnet.
oh, oh. And it's not even the right shape. It's what they wanted. You know what? Sometimes you have to do what they want. And then people lampoon you later on. Don't you know the right shape? Don't you know that that shouldn't be? Well, but you do what you're directed to do. And there's a reason. Hats are always tipped back a little further in film so the camera can come in. This one, they wanted to be able to have her hair down. And you're going, why? But they did. And this show wasn't that good anyway.
Well, you know, the thing is, none of us should take our fashion history from the movies.
No,
There are
no.
definitely designers, there are films out there that make me weep, and it's like looking into the past, truly, and seeing it in motion
Right.
and living. But for the most part, it is a recreation at best, and a
It's
lot of times,
entertainment. It's
yes.
entertainment. It's not Smithsonian look-alike or reality.
Correct. Exactly. So I do have a really favorite story with you, with your millinery. That has to do with the movies. And this is just hilarious to me because your work is in so many films. You know, and the thing is, you were not the designer on the
No.
films. So, you know, and designers bring costumes together from all sorts of areas. Things are actually designed and built for a movie star. Things are shopped in vintage stores. Things are shopped at rental companies, you know, that have thousands of pieces of dress and accessories. And I just love that once you visited a costume shop, a rental costume shop, and there were some hats sitting out. And please tell me what happened.
Well, I was actually in a costume, we won't use their name, and it was overseas, and I was actually looking for some costumes for a show I was working on, and we do rent overseas. And I said, oh, that's one of my hats. And they, oh, no, that's not. That's one of ours. And then they named the designer who did it, who I actually know now. And she was their resident milliner for years. And they said, no, this is her hat. And I said, no, it's not. I said, give me a seam ripper. And they went, what? I said, look, I'll sew it back up. Let me just take out a part of the lining. Because I used to, because you don't put your label in hats for film or theater, because they don't want to take it off and then there's this label in it.
Right.
So I took a little part of the lining out, you know, in the crown, and I reached in and I wiggled around and I pulled out my label. I said, this is one of my hats. Because, and they went, what? And I said, yes. And so what we figured out is, happens all the time. Large costume houses, rental places, they get work, and it's too much work, but they'll take the work. And so they will overhire. They'll either bring in some extra people for something, or they'll send it out to somebody else who they know, like a milliner. They'll go, will you do these hats? So let's just say that, Kevin, you get 12 hats. And you say, yes, I can do these 12 hats. And you realize you can't do 12 hats in the amount of time. So you call me. Mm-hmm. And you say, Mela, can you do 6 of these hats? And so I don't know where they're going. I don't know who they're for. I just know that you're going to pay me for 6 hats, less than you're getting paid for the 12 hats.
Of course.
I will do the 6 hats, and they'll go to you, and you'll write me a check. Or you'll pay me. Now it would be PayPal, but it was a check before. And then you give them the hats, and then they give the production the hats. And that could go down the way. And that happens all the time. That is normal procedure. So you don't know where your product's going. You don't know what it's for. You have no idea. And for the longest time, I would get a fax. Remember faxes?
Right.
I'd get a fax. And they would give me a picture like at a Davenport or a Sketch or something like that, or Wilcox, and they go, can you do this hat? And I go, yeah. And so I would make the hat, and I would ship it to somebody, the Susie Q, whatever, and then I have no idea where the hat would go. And then maybe years later, someone would say, you know, I was watching this on VHS, and I saw this hat I think is yours. And that's the truth. That's how a lot of my hats. I mean, a Comanche Moon was like the only film I was actually hired to do millinery. No, that's not true. Bolden was a film that none of you have seen either. And that, yeah, it's a jazz musician. It did come out for like 12 seconds. And I did the hats for that. That's the only film I was actually hired straight on by the film. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Every other film, I've been hired through a second, third, or fourth party, and 9 times out of 10, I don't even know where the hat is going.
Well, it's fascinating because it's a way for people to have a career, right?
Yeah.
And not be the 12 costume designers in the world who get all the work.
Right. No, it's a viable career. It really is. And then a lot of times I'd hire students to assist on it. I did on Bolden, and so they got to work on it and they got experience, and I paid them to do things like that. But they're nowhere near on the list anywhere. I'm not on the list, even though I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really normal, really normal. Last night we were watching a show, and the sweater that someone was wearing was obviously hand knit. And I just had to have some knitting done for a project I'm on, and I didn't do the knitting. I had 3 other people do the knitting for me because I don't knit. But then I provided the product for the client along with other stuff. And I looked at that sweater, and I went, somebody hand knit that sweater for them.
Right.
There's no credit in the thing saying hand knit sweater by, but
right.
somebody got paid to hand knit that sweater.
So networking is very, very important.
Absolutely. And expanding your skills.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know what? Try something, but also don't think you're an expert because you've done it once. So realize what you can, you have to be able to produce a product that is acceptable for the client. But the only way you get there is by doing it, by practicing, by trying things.
Well, and for you also for looking at historical examples, for doing research and applying that to all of your technical skills as well.
Right, absolutely.
And because you have that historic foundation, you can do something that's completely authentic if it's called for, or you can go Disney if it's called for.
Yeah. You have to think about the end product. You can't say, well, that's not historically correct. You have to think about what is their end product. And, and when you're not the designer, you're not in charge.
And it's not something that you necessarily like or would wear.
Right. Oh, yeah. It has nothing to do with it. You have to go with the brief, and you have to be willing to go with the brief that you're given and understand the end results. Opera is larger than musical theater, and musical theater is larger than a straight drama, and a straight drama is even larger than a small intimate theater, and intimate theater is larger than a film now, especially with HD, with everything being so much high resolution. So things are you have to understand the scope of what it's going for and the scale and who the audience is.
Right. Well, we're going to segue into actual historical garments now, because this is Collection Conversation with the FIDM Museum, and we always tie our talks in with objects in the museum's collection, and you've been a very generous donor to the museum over the years, and I have to say one of my favorites is this lady.
Not a great dress? I love that one.
This is fabulous. Now, honestly, it is the 1890s on acid with acid green trim. It is just over the top. Honest to God, anybody I think they'd like, oh, this is a costume. This is not an actual historical gown, but it is. Yeah, I did. I thought, is that real? Like I said, people are recreating things really well today, and sometimes you can't tell standing 3 feet away from it. But indeed, this is a mid-1890s, probably about 1896 afternoon garment in polka dots. And it's, black with this kind of limey, acidy green trim all over it. Actually, I don't know if I've ever asked you, where did you find this? And it's in pristine condition.
It was given to me as a study piece for my students.
It is so fantastic. It has literally a kitchen sink on the front. It's just got it all. Did you ever use this as an inspiration for something?
No, I didn't. I've never had the opportunity. I've always wanted to. It's always been in the back of my mind, and that's why I was so late in giving it to you. I held on to it for so long because I just knew I wanted to use it for something, but I just never had the opportunity. It needs to be in a crazy show. Or
Right, and
Hello Dolly for someone in the background in the streets, for musical or Music Man or something. But it's just the wrong time period.
right. I mean, honestly, if I ever saw this on film, I would have thought, oh, the designer just went a little bit overboard on that.
Yeah.
Too bad it's not quite authentic, right? And
Right.
then I would be shamefaced
Yeah.
because it is absolutely spot on, perfect. It's never been altered.
No.
And is in pristine condition. So, and we've had it on display. That's why it was beautifully dressed and photographed. And I just love this. So thank you, Mela.
You're welcome.
Now, we have our permanent collection, but we also have our study collection, which is the hands-on collection that our students use mostly for classes. We put together racks, they go into the classes, and they can actually handle the things. They can't try anything on, nothing can be worn on the body once it enters the museum's collection. But this is so beautiful, Mela.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so this is
great.
about 1930,
Yeah.
printed chiffon, formal afternoon dress, probably.
Yeah, and actually, it's unfortunately that picture doesn't do its justice. When it's on a dress form, it's really lovely. It's really, really lovely. And that was also given to me for a study piece for students. A lot of people would donate things to me because they knew I was teaching historic dress and historic dress construction. Fullerton College has one of the few programs in the nation that teaches historic dress construction. And so they would give me clothes so that the students could learn, and we would put them out, and they'd have to analyze what time period and look at the stitches and things like that and pattern off of them. So when I left, my collection went to FIDM.
Well, and we thank you for that, really. I mean, trunks and trunks of clothes were donated by Mela. It's really, really generous. And, this ended up in the study collection because there is staining throughout
Mm-hmm.
the skirt, which can't be removed. So it's not something we would have in a permanent collection, but it's never been touched. It's completely intact. It's still strong.
Yeah.
And therefore it can, kind of take the rigors of being in the study collection and getting more handling than our normal permanent collection pieces. But also, it's such a striking piece. This is something that could be, the fabric is perfect for today's dress, but also that this would be beautiful in a film for the close-up for the actress, or from a distance because of its silhouette and also its striking, so it would look beautiful on stage. When we collect things for the museum, it's not just, oh, that's a pretty dress. There has to be reasons, more than one, for us to take things into the collection, and this just hit all of the marks.
Good. I'm so glad.
Hats. As Mela has mentioned earlier, millinery, and I was over at her house before she moved up to Oregon, and I was working on the sporting fashion project and looking for a very specific hat, late 1870s. And Mela's like, I've got one for you.
And you said, no, you don't.
Right.
Yep, and
so
I had that in my collection. I bought that on eBay years ago to recreate it for a film, and never did. And it's just been in a box, and I've loved it. I just love this hat, but I just knew it needed a better home. When you said you needed it, I thought, okay, this is somebody telling me that this hat needs to go. But I know where it's at.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always available. It's still your hat. That's one of the things I think about. All the things that have been donated to the museum, they're still owned by the people who donated them. They just are taken care of here. And, it's because of the generosity of individuals like yourself that, we have these resources to share with everybody else. So, it's really great. This is the back of the hat.
Oh, that's the best.
Because in the photo in the catalog, you don't get to see all of the all the way around it. This really is a beautiful hat. It's a straw that's been painted, and it has a great shape. And when you gave it, it had been, when you got it, it had been mushed down. And so I spent about 2 or 3 hours of slowly steaming all of this back, and it just went right back into shape.
You just turned.
I know. Sorry about that. My phone just fell over. My phone was very excited about this hat.
Okay, I'm so glad.
But because you know what a museum piece is versus what maybe a study piece is,
right.
And that this would be spot on. And this is the ensemble.
Isn't that great?
that we dressed it with. This is a summering outfit. The ensemble itself was given to us by Stephen Porterfield, and her sunshade was given by Yvonne Hummel. And you then donated the very beautiful bonnet that she's wearing that literally topped it off exactly perfectly.
And so you just said, once again, it takes a village to create a picture like that. Each of those things were donated by different people, but it puts it together and how everyone else is going to see it at the exhibit or in the book. But it takes a village.
Right. And this is one of the ensembles that is in sporting fashion, Outdoor Girls 1800 to 1960, which Christina Johnson, the associate curator, and I worked on for more than 10 years. And it came out just almost exactly a year ago. It was in March of 2021. It got delayed because of COVID, but it is out now. It opened, it didn't get to open here as we had planned, but it did open at the Frick, the Museum Frick on the East Coast. And in 2024, it will be out here as the grand finale at the FIDM Museum Galleries. But in the meantime, it is touring the country for 3 years, which is incredible. And it opens next at the Dixon Gallery in Memphis, Tennessee in July. One of the other ensembles that is in sporting fashion is this extremely beautiful lady.
I love
and that. Now, Mela did not donate this to us. It is a absolutely unbelievable circa 1900 Redfern promenading outfit. And it was from the Paris branch of Redfern. And I found this, screamed my head off, had to buy it, and we acquired it. And we acquired it in honor of Mela Hoyt-Heydon. And the reason why we did that is because of all of the things, Mela, that you have donated to the museum over the years that we did not keep. You have given us hundreds of pieces that we were able to sell, and those funds, 100%, go to our acquisition account that then help us to acquire things when something comes up at auction or through a dealer that otherwise we would not have the money for. And so I was so excited to be able to acquire this, and I knew that you would love it because it's just your time period.
I know, I love it. I absolutely love it. But what I love about it is the ascot button on it, too, that you found. That was so fabulous.
Yeah, she's attending the ascot, and we're able to talk about the dress at that sporting event. And this just placed it absolutely perfectly.
I know. I think that's something you just said that's really important that people don't realize, that you can take donations that maybe would not be good enough for us to exhibit and maybe not good enough for a study collection, but you have sources that you can take them to that will buy them, and that raises money for you to purchase things like this that are right for exhibiting or for the collection. I think that's important for people to know.
Absolutely, and not a lot of people understand that is an option. We do try to make donations to the museum as streamlined as possible. You know, a lot of times families are looking to place a whole group of things that have gathered over the years, heirlooms, and most of the time a museum may want 1 or 2 pieces or something like that, and then the family is left with everything else and still have to deal with it. You know, for us, I told you, I've told lots of people, you know what, I'll take anything you have, anything, because we can find either for the permanent collection, the study collection, our students, like lots of the fabrics and trims that you've donated, those have gone to the students because they use them in their classroom work for their projects, or we're then able to sell and the funds that are raised. And you know, we turn it around. And so this is in honor of Mela Hoyt-Heydon. So thank you, Mela.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also, and I've got to quickly go through the rest of the slides because our time is ticking away already. This is an ensemble that Mela acquired for us as in that group effort that she talked about.
Yeah, so that really wasn't me. That is Costumers Guild West, a costume organization based out of Los Angeles metro area, and their purpose is the study and research and wearing of costumes and enjoying costumes. And so they purchased this garment for FIDM to have in its collection, which is one of its older items, and
Yes.
in beautiful shape, because, you know, to help support the museum, but also to have access to the collection, to be able to research and study to help create other costumes for themselves, clothing for themselves, and to support the study of dress. So I did not purchase this, but I was a great part of making sure that the CGW purchased this for them.
Correct. At the time that we acquired this, you were the president of the Costumers Guild West, CGW.
But it takes a village again. It's not one person.
It's true, absolutely. And thank you, because this is a silver and silk polychrome brocaded court dress Britain from about 1770. And it really is a spectacular piece, one of the most spectacular pieces in the museum's collection. Okay, I'm moving along. So Christina and my next project, Christina's working on Rudy Gernrich, but we're also, now that sporting fashion is over with, jointly working on undergarments, or as I'm calling them right now, skivvies. And Mela has just donated random things over the years, and including pieces that are going to be in the project. So this is a pair of stockings, no kidding, stockings in this little box, and I don't know if you can see right here, the stocking has a pocket. It's Willie of Hollywood with a zipper closure, and this is where you would keep your lipstick and pin money underneath your skirt. And here are the stockings themselves with, oh golly.
You just got too excited there.
Sorry. Usually I have my phone set up in a different way, but this time we had to rejigger it. Oop. So here are the stockings with that pocket right here. So we're looking for really fun, unusual things. And Mela walked in one day with a visit. I think I pulled out a ton of hats. And here were these. Do you remember where you found these?
And I didn't find them. They were given to me. Ambra Wakefield was who worked with me, who's now passed away. They were her mother's, who also passed away. And she had found them in her mother's things and said, you should have this, you know, for your students to show them something different. And I thought it would be better at the museum than whipping out stockings with my students. And so they were from her mom, and they were from her mom's honeymoon. I remember that. Her husband had given them to her on her honeymoon.
Nice. Also, this really fabulous pair of garters that are silk, lace, faux pearls, and ermine tails.
Yeah, and those came from her also, too. Those were her.
Okay, and, you know, we were talking, because they came in this box, which is so odd, and it's from Honolulu, Hawaii. Do you think the box is original?
I actually think it is, because I'm going to make some phone calls because they were stationed in Hawaii. I know that, and so I bet you they were bought there in Hawaii. So I don't know. So that would have been in the 40s. Yes.
Yeah. And then, and I've got to rush through this because we're going to be cut off. This fabulous pair of late 19th century, 1885, 1895, red and black silk stockings.
I remember when I pulled those out for you, you went, ah! Yeah.
Do you remember where you found these?
I found those in a tiny, rolled up in a tiny little antique shop, just all rolled up with a whole bunch of other pieces of fabric.
Well, this is the last image I have, and this is the ensemble that they are going to be dressed with. This gorgeous silk chine petticoat that Stephen donated to us, your stockings, and this gorgeous red satin, literally a heart corset that we just found that is from Paris.
So great.
So they're going to look spectacular together. So you'll have to wait. We haven't photographed them yet. Okay, Mela, we're literally going to be shut off by Instagram. So I want to thank you for joining me today.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate it. It was really nice of you. I'm honored to have been here, and I hope that it was great for who was here. I didn't have many questions, but, you know.
Well, that's because we talk a lot.
I know, the two of us are horrible. You get us together and we just yak forever.
Right, right. Well, I look forward to when you get to come back down again, and especially to see this new Regency bonnet that we're acquiring, and anything else you want. And also, you know, everybody, we are open to the world. You want to do research on historic dress, follow Mela's lead and contact us, let us know, and we'll happily pull things out for you to examine. Thank you again, Mela. Thank you, Bruce and Victoria, for helping with our technical difficulties.
Right.
Everything seemed to go perfectly today.
Absolutely.
And thank you all from around the world joining us for this collection conversation, and we will see you again. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Bye-bye.